Okay, tonight I'm going to look at infrared remote repair. First thing you really need is a tester. Now the way you can make one of these for yourself, that's just a bit of an infrared filter on one of these zippy boxes. Looks like it's a... is it a genuine Dick Smith one? No, it's a Reptron made in Hong Kong. I think it did come from Dick Smith though. So just one of these boxes. All I've got in here, I've got a... because I don't want to mess around with batteries, I've got an old power pack off something, which I think's about 9 volts. Okay, where does it say? 240 volt, yeah, 9 volt, I think 100 milliamps. That just goes to a 3.5mm plug. So you can sort of leave this permanently plugged in around the workshop, or at least on a power point, and flick the switch on when you want it. No worrying about batteries leaking or anything. And all it is, I've just put a little 7805 regulator in here, and just used the universal 3-pin infrared receiver. I think this came out of an old TV by the look of it. Could have been an old VCR, but I think this was an old AWA 3420 or something Daewoo made TV that caught fire. I'm pretty sure I got it out of one of those. And basically they've just got 5 volts in, ground, and 1 signal line out of it. Some of them may have enough signal strength to actually drive something, but generally they tend to be only aimed at going straight into a microprocessor chip. So there's another little bit of Vero board here which just has a couple of resistors, current limiting the LED, and a transistor, so like a BC548 or something. So just when this receiver gets a signal into it from an infrared source, it just pulses the transistor with the signal line out of this, and that then flashes an LED. So I've got this old remote off my set-top box here, and if I point that at the unit, you can see that LED flashing, and that just gives you an indication that the remote's working. So that's all you need. I just stuck a bit of this old red diffuser stuff off something just to cover the LED and the infrared receiver hole. I mean, this thing's getting pretty rough now. It's had a lot of use kicking around the workshop. Probably could do with a good clean. But anyway, that's all you can do. The more modern units aren't a great big unit like this. They're just a tiny little square box you'll find on the front panel of a TV or VCR or something, but they're exactly the same thing. Usually 5 volts and ground in. The case is usually ground, and 1 signal line comes out. There's usually 3 pins on them, and the metal case, and that's it. They're usually soldered in with 2 tabs off the metal case, and then 3 pins, one of which is 5 volt, one of which is ground, which you can usually find by because it's connected to the body, to the metal casing, and the other one's your little signal line that'll go off to the microprocessor. So it's a handy little thing to build. I think they do make commercial ones, but if you've got a few minutes you can easily build your own one of those. You could make it battery powered as well, but again, you'll have to have a voltage regulator most likely to get the 5 volts for it. They may not be too fussed if you stick 6 volts or something into them. But anyway, the reason I got that out is because I bought this remote for my NVG series Panasonic hi-fi machine. I got this off eBay, and supposedly it was tested, but surprise surprise, when I got it, like a lot of things off eBay, turns out all the channel buttons don't work on it, and all the tape function buttons, or maybe the still button works, but the rest, play, stop and all that, don't work. All the useless things you don't want, like reset and clock counter, at least VTR on and off, it works, and video or VTR TV button works. So I think that little bunch of them there works, but all the main features you really want a remote for don't work, which is always the way. But they gave me a refund on it anyway after I mentioned that I've tested it on my tester and it doesn't work. So I might as well have a look at this thing. I've actually ordered another one anyway, which is a slightly different one to this one, but most of the Panasonic remotes have the same codes, especially these later ones that are from the NVG era, GMEC era. They've all pretty much got that little scanner part on it. So it's got a little, I think it's a LED and a photodiode in one case there. And they used to put it was like an early version of the G code. I'm not sure if they put that in the newspapers or not, but I think Panasonic gave you a booklet with a list of codes that equated to various times, something like that. It's been a long time since I've seen any of that stuff. But any of the remotes with that, the scanner part does come on. If I press scanner on off, the LCD lights up. I guess I should have really shown it. Put it back together for a second, because I don't know if I can easily... I could just hook a power supply to that, but we can put it on our tester here. Make sure you've got a couple of fresh batteries. Yeah, the scanner off beeps and comes up with something. It's ready to scan. Don't know if it'll read anything off a random code or not, but with a remote tester you can see the LEDs going on. That's the VTR button, which is the power on off. I think all these buttons up the top here work. TV, VCR, but if I go into, I think record did actually work. You've got to press 2 buttons at once on this. It's got the record red button plus that little line to another one. So that's just to stop you accidentally pressing record. That's interesting. Now the stop button there sort of worked for a second. That one works, I think, which is a still advance. So I think that's the first time I've seen anything out of the stop button, but now it's stopped again. None of these, so that button works, which is the the ultra slow. With all the buttons that no one uses seem to work. So it could just have food or something in it, a drink spilled on it, or it could be that all these buttons are worn out because they're the ones people use. Oh, look how little, when I turn the scanner on, that little light lights up. So there you go. I guess if we turn that off. Yeah, well there you go. It must be like a high brightness LED that works as a barcode scanner. So obviously that comes out and there's a diode, picks up the signal going back in through the same little, I guess it's got a little lens or something on there. But I think when we press these buttons, yeah, nothing on this group works, even the ones that aren't used much. But I press the ones we don't use much on that top group. So yeah, a lot of these remotes you just got to gently press a screwdriver in there. You probably will mark it a little bit and prise these little tabs that hold them together. I always used to warn the customers that if they want it fixed I may have to leave a couple of marks on it because there's no other way of doing it. Looks like we've got a couple of screws here, but you know, I fixed a lot of these over the year, and a lot of the time you just need to clean the contacts in them. Sometimes the contacts will be completely stuffed. Another thing that can go wrong is down the edges of the board in particular. You'll find a little crack somewhere that's broken some of the tracks, or one of the tracks. Oh yeah, they're quite filthy. If they've got sort of muck on them and they're stuck, these are kind of stuck down a bit, that's usually a sign that they've had a drink in them. Oh yeah, and the underside of it, oh god, yeah, that's filthy as. Amazing, it just seems to hit all the buttons. Don't know if that shows up, but there's some sort of, is it actually goo or just possibly some oily remains or something on there? Almost looks like little droplets of water. So that's often what you find after a drink's been spilled, and you get all this sort of filthy stuff on the buttons themselves and this oily looking stuff. Even soft drinks, coffee, all of it seems to leave this oily residue. Oh yeah, and all these contacts, these little rubber bits are like impregnated with carbon or something, and half of these are shiny as, which is another sign they should be dull. Those top ones are all shining, a couple of the bottom ones aren't, and I don't know if these are quite as bad. They're not the contacts are shining that much, but the top ones are all clean as, the ones we know work, right down to that record button. Even the one that does work there is quite filthy, but not as bad as the rest. And if you look at the circuit board, again there's some sort of muck you can see on there, particularly on the buttons that are most useful. Sometimes you'll find it's corroded, some of these plated through holes. That's actually sticky. So they're not sticky, that's as sticky as. You can hear my finger pulling, making a noise as it comes off that. Sometimes they'll also get under and ruin these edge connectors for the LCD, but thankfully this one's alright. But they can often just be peeled off and cleaned. This one doesn't have a real good way of, I don't think it matters too much though, of aligning the things up, but I think you can just pull them off and put them back on, and they pretty much self-align between the whatever little contacts inside these sandwich things will actually just connect with the tracks on the board and with the little sort of, I guess, deposited little conductors on the LCD. If you tilt it the right way, you can see sort of shiny little bits in through the glass, which are the conductors, but they're basically transparent. So all we really need to do, and oh god, there's hairs and all sorts of filth in there. So ideally you want to clean the case and clean out most of these holes and any of this shiny sticky stuff on there. But before I even go to that extent, all you really need is a cotton bud and some methylated spirits. Start by cleaning the actual board itself, and it's best to clean the whole area, not just these black contact parts, but any part of the board. I mean, you might as well do all the contacts in it while you're at it, since we've got it apart and it's an old unit. So give that all a good clean, and you can see the sort of brown muck coming off. So I might even need to do this a couple of times. Oh, that's really sticky on there. So it could be soft drinks or just leaving the syrup behind, I guess, once it dries out. Or coffee. Again, it's probably actually sugar. This, it's kind of oily looking, but it's also sticky, so I assume the stickiness is probably syrup, some sort of sugar based remains of the drink, since most of the stuff we drink has sugar in it. Don't know what beer or something does, but even that's got sort of malt and stuff in it, so maybe it does a similar thing. So give that board a good clean, and anyway you see the stuff on it should really be clean, because it can be corrosive. This stuff doesn't look like it is corrosive. And then it's a matter of cleaning the contacts. There's no guarantee this will work. Normally the contacts on the board will be fine. I think that's evaporating off alright. But these little rubber contacts will wear out on their own sometimes, or if something's been on them, they can just lose their conductivity. You used to be able to buy like a silver liquid sort of metallic conductive paint that you could actually put on these terminals. Didn't last forever, but it seemed to get remotes going for people and keep them going for a while. Sometimes it would peel off again if you weren't careful, but don't know if it was just the way it was applied or what, but sometimes it would come off again. But a lot of remotes could be resurrected by putting a coating of that silver conductive paint on these little black circular parts of the bits that are conductive. The rest of it's just rubber. I don't know exactly how they attach these things, but they're sort of melted into the rubber or glued to it very well, but they are conductive. Some sort of carbonated rubber or something like that. They don't need to be particularly conductive, just enough for the little chip in the remote to recognise. So I can't remember if I've measured the resistance. I don't think they're like 0 ohms or anything. I think they've got a bit of resistance to them. But if you push each rubber key up as you do it, clean the actual surface of that black part, but also clean out all around it, because that sticky stuff might migrate or something. So it's usually best just to completely remove all of it, get the rubber clean again. You could even scrub this with a toothbrush or something. I think I have had to do it with some of them, but usually just the cotton buds are enough. Let that dry off, and that should get rid of all the shininess and the sort of liquidy looking oily stuff on there. That's looking quite clean now. So I think with this one, before I go to the trouble of cleaning the whole remote, I might just click it all back together after cleaning these and make sure the buttons do actually work, because if this rubber part's worn out, it's probably not really worth proceeding with it. And yeah, push up each one of these. And this is quite sticky where I'm touching it. And yeah, that should get these contacts working again. Like I said, they should go nice and dull after you've cleaned them from their previously shiny state. Quite a bit of work to get all this muck off, because it's kind of right around these little raised contact parts is this sort of horrible goo. Not my favourite job to do, but this was quite a common thing for customers to bring their remote controls in for repair, because they used to, cost $80, $100 a lot of the time they were charging for them. As the equipment got cheaper in the modern world, it ended up being like $20 for a remote or something. It's hardly worth bothering with. You could just order a new one for $20 odd, even at retail price, so it wasn't really worth necessarily trying to fix them. Oh, look at the filth coming off on my hands from the other side. I'll have to get that clean too, just because it's totally gross. Whoever owned this has obviously been a big eater and drinker while they're watching their videos, because there's a lot of muck on these keys. Ugh, bloody Doritos or something probably. That's the stereotype goes, Doritos and Mountain Dew, isn't it? So they probably spilt Mountain Dew on it while they're eating their Doritos. I've got some paper towel. Something disposable, because I don't want to get rid of this completely, but that's actually cleaned that up rather well. Whoops, I've broken one. That's another thing you've got to be careful of. If this rubber's started tearing at all, they will actually come off. Often if the buttons have had a lot of use, you'll find this rubber's actually starting to deteriorate a bit. If a particular button's been used a lot, it gets fatigued. And if you're not careful when you wipe sideways a bit, you can do what I just did and actually finish it off. But that's no biggie. I can probably, I reckon that'll, yeah, because they sit in the holes, that should, if I can just sit that back in the hole, it'll probably work fine. As long as it can't come out the hole. Thankfully these have a little bit of a skirt around them, so they can't fall out the hole out the front of the remote. Yuck, look at that. Absolutely disgusting. And yeah, this, ideally you want to clean the holes in the remote. Like I say, it's actually hairs and all sorts of disgusting stuff in there. So this is why you don't want to buy a 20 or 30-year-old remote control second-hand, because it's pretty rare to find one that's actually nice and clean. Might do the same with these buttons on the upside. Might actually be easier to get a cotton bud in there and just get rid of that where it's oily and stuff, and just try and clean some of the stuff off the sides of them that's come down through the holes, the food or whatever it is. Absolutely horrible. There's another hair on there, lovely. But man, it's amazing how filthy most remote controls get. Yeah, it's about only people that don't eat any snacks while they're watching their entertainment. About the only time you find a clean remote. No matter how clean you think you're being, you know, if this has been used for 10 years or more, it's bound to have a bit of muck in it. And a bit of dust or hair there. Often you've got to get down and do each hole individually. I've actually had them where, yeah, it's actually stuck to these sides a little bit. And you really got to clean out each hole. Some of these I can't even get the cotton bud through because they're too small. But we clean them from the back side. Quite a boring job really, but like I say, I should really just test this one now, but it's so filthy. I think I'll get rid of a bit of this muck while I got it apart. Then if it works, I don't have to put it back together. It's not going to take much longer just to clean a bit more of that out. So I'm on 6 or so cotton buds so far, just to try and get rid of the worst of this. And I'll just let these dry out while I'm doing this. And it doesn't need to clean out that little display window because that's bound to have dust and stuff in there. I mean, the whole remote's a little filthy on the outside. Every little slot where that door slides and stuff's all got muck in it. You can basically just poke something down there with a screwdriver, careful not to scratch the plastic. Which, you know, without testing it, I normally wouldn't go this far. But I must admit, it looks a damn sight better now already. Oh, our little window's fallen out. That's probably a good thing, because that needs, for the infrared LED, that needs a clean. That's got some sort of food or something on it as well. Never hurts to clean these because they can get quite dirty sometimes. And it's not going to improve the range of the remote if it does. So the board itself, Yeah, looking nice and clean. There's a little residue on there maybe. I might give that one more if I've got a clean cotton bud there. Just the actual contacts themselves are all that really matter now. I've got rid of the worst of it. Just try and get them. Still a bit of brown stuff coming off, so there's definitely a bit of residue still. Just get those contacts now, as long as there's nothing on the board to cause any major issues. That must be our beeper, because it makes that little bip sound when you press the scanner. LEDs are usually cleaning these. Little scanner bit probably could do with a bit of a clean around it, although that's got that little shroud over it, so that shroud probably needs a clean. It's not too bad. Never hurts to have a good look, make sure the LED doesn't have any dry joints on it, which is a common thing. Same with the battery terminals. And they all have a little resonator in them. This one's a bit smaller than usual. Is that actually the resonator? I think it is. Yeah, it looks like it. It's a 3-pin one. But they're the main causes of problems in remotes, is the LED, either dry joints or it fails. There's a little crystal resonator, usually a yellow with 455 or something on it. Again, they break loose, getting dropped, and they'll get dry joints, or the pin will actually break off them. They're usually laying down flat with 2 pins coming out, 2 flat pins, and if it starts flapping around, because it's usually they're glued down, if it comes loose, then eventually metal fatigue will break that. Cracks in the board is another common thing, and this is probably even the most common problem, is filthy key contacts in them due to some sort of liquid beverage getting in there. I'll just give these one more clean. I can see a little bit of shiny stuff. Even the ones that were working, I'll give just a quick clean. You don't want to overdo it with these, but if it's a good quality remote, you should be able to clean it reasonably well. Some of the cheaper ones, once they start playing up, if you clean them, you may even lose what was left of the contacts, but they're sort of like these earlier Japanese ones, are pretty well built. So you can see a little bit of black muck. I think often when you clean these you will get a little bit of stuff off them anyway. So you're probably depleting them a little bit. But again, I'll just say if they're good quality brands, they've usually made them pretty well. So that's the lower buttons, and we'll put that one little broken one in. It used to go a particular way. I can see the 8 on it. I think it went that way. Actually, I better clean that one a second time. Not any dust. They all look pretty good. That's still wet, so I'll just try that. Come on, Metho, you're not evaporating quick enough. Still a bit of hairy stuff on there. But they're looking pretty good. Try not to get your fingers on the contacts, it probably won't matter too much. But you might put a bit of finger grease or something on them, which is not ideal, so I'll just get that another clean. A couple of them are looking a little shiny still. I might just dry that off quickly with some paper towel, because it's a bit cooler tonight and it's not evaporating on its own like it should. Not as quickly as it should. Still a little shininess, but that's just the method, I think. That will come out eventually. And it's quite filthy. Often you'll get around these edges of the remote with a little, where the 2 halves join together, that'll be full of filth as well. So if you're doing up a remote for your own use or selling something or whatever, if you clean that up, it looks a ton better. I'll just get a cotton bud and go around that gap, and there's just muck everywhere. Some of that you can see, some of it you probably can't, but if it's dirty, then it's likely open to the world. And it's amazing how much it detracts from a remote to have that showing. Ugh, it's just absolutely filthy. This one's got a kind of slot in it to make it even harder, has it? Oh, maybe it is a flat face. Oh god, it's peeling off. Sometimes you need to get a little screwdriver and just gently, yuck, scrape that off. It is so well embedded in there. It's disgusting. peels off. Oh, it just keeps coming. Oh, it's so disgusting. Like, if I'm going to use this remote, I don't want all that filth on it. Even though it's probably completely harmless, it's pretty disgusting nonetheless. Yeah, if it was my filth, I wouldn't mind so much, but if it's someone else's, oh, I don't want anything to do with it. Okay, just get this little, oh, I got it out, it's a good time to clean around the edges of this as well. A little scanner piece, which you have to slot that in before you put it back together. I'm not sure which way it went that way. Flat side up, I think. And this other surface that mates the top one, that'll also need a clean, because that's basically where the muck sticks into it. Not as hard to get off as the other one. But look at it, brown muck coming off everywhere. I hate to think what that is, but it'd be just food mainly, but probably a bit of grease off people's skin. Oh, see, this side still isn't fully cleaned. A bit of paper towel. It does not want to come off. It's still brown as. It's unbelievable. Anyway, now that's fallen off. That sort of just pushes on anyway. There's a little bit of muck in this half. Just check those battery contacts look alright. And now it's the moment of truth. I'll just put that back on so the batteries don't fall out. Oh, scanner still works. It still lights up, so that's something. Now, this button was working and it still is. And really, you've got to test every single button. These are ones all that worked before. Now record. Yeah, we've got stop, pause, still advance was working before, play, rewind, fast forward, slow buttons were working before. And we've got channel 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yeah, so that 8 button does feel a little less resistance, not as tactile since it broke the rubber there, but it works fine. Monitor, not sure what that's for. Time search. So all the buttons are now in working order again. But, you know, I only paid about $15 for this thing, and it's cost me more than that in labour technically to repair it, so I'm not going to pay $15 for a faulty remote and have to fix it. So I'm glad I got a refund on that. It was worth a try, so it looks like it's actually going. It's not in the best condition. That's a record, I've got to press both. So as simple as that. Could do with a little bit more cleaning up. It's got some weird lump there and it's a bit rough, a bit scratched. But that'll do as a spare remote. Hopefully the other one I've got on order will be better. So thanks for watching.